The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.
Welcome to another Leon Charney report. We have a really eclectic and exciting show tonight.
The Leon Charney Report congratulates the team of BDC, The Price of Peace, and Leon Charney on the New York Emmy Awards win. The documentary reveals the true story of the negotiations leading up to the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time, the Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt. Watch it on Hulu.com or buy the special feature edition DVD at select stores.
Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the backdoor channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the mystery of the Kaddish.
Hi, I'm Leon Charney, and this is the Leon Charney Report. And no one better to speak about the current events of today than William Bratton, the former commissioner of police for the city of New York under Mayor Giuliani. Exemplary career. People think he was the best since Teddy Roosevelt. Look what happened to Teddy Roosevelt. He became president of the United States. In any case, everybody's just upset about what happened in Atlanta, and obviously what happened with the TWA flight. So we felt we'd bring on a real expert on crime and terrorism. I think, well, welcome, Bill Bratton.
Leon, good to be here. Nice to be with you.
You won an award one time in Boston, I read in your biography, for something about terrorism. You captured a terrorist or something?
Actually, no, it was a individual holding up a bank and taking one of the tellers hostage and ending up facing him down and rescuing the hostage. Not a terrorist incident, no. Hostage taking.
You follow everything that's going on now, and I'm sure you've been called in as a consultant, or your company. What's the name of your company now?
The company that I'm with is First Security Services Corporation, headquarters in Boston. I'm running a division down here, First Security Consulting, over in the Payne-Weber building here in New York City. I didn't want to leave New York after I finished my position as police commissioner, and went with this company because it allowed me to stay here in New York and continue to stay in a city I've come to love very much.
Atlanta, your guess, did this fellow Jewel commit a crime?
Well, right now there's been an awful lot of focus, as we're talking in the newspapers today, TV reports, there's a lot of focus on the security guard as to whether or not he may have been involved. I don't know, that there's a lot of building momentum toward that conclusion, but we really have to wait till the investigation's complete and if charges are forthcoming. There's been a great deal of analysis of this young man in terms of his background. Does he fit the profile of somebody who might commit this type of act? And at this time, much the same as the TWA 800 situation, we just don't know until we get more conclusive proof.
How does it come about that it's leaked to the press? I mean, this guy's been attacked. If it happens that he's not accused, or
I know it would be a terrible injustice.
Wouldn't it be terrible?
It really would. I think that...
Now, you can't leak unless they want it to leak. I mean, you and I know that.
Except you can't control leaks. I've been in very high-profile positions for most of my career, and as much as you think you can control the news, control the leaks, you cannot. There are too many people involved in any investigation, too many people who have different motives, relationships, friendships. You never really know why a piece of news is leaked or why it's leaked in a certain way. There's an awful lot of information on the young man in Atlanta in terms of his background. We even know where the calls to the FBI came from in terms of his former employees at the college. There's an awful lot of information floating around in this one that it's not so much a matter of a leak, it's a waterfall.
You remember that case with Oklahoma, and they accused an Arab of being a terrorist?
Well, I think initially the reaction for any terrorism in this country on a large scale, because of the history of terrorist acts, not in America but in other parts of the world against Americans, we all jumped to the conclusion that Arabs, particularly from certain countries over in that part of the world, as we've come to find out over the last year, that America has unfortunately developed some of its own homegrown nuts, and whether they're the two characters that are charged with the blowing up of the federal building in Oklahoma, some of the speculation in terms of who might have done the Atlanta bombing, the Unabomber, just a character that was sitting up in the woods for 20 years making bombs and sending them around. America seems, unfortunately, to have developed its own capabilities in this area.
Well, I'm talking about the legal aspect. You know, I'm a lawyer, and I'm talking about Tom Brokaw said on NBC yesterday that some of these leaks are intentional by police or FBI or whoever involved in this, and they want to make the guy sweat. And what they do is they put terrific pressure on him from external forces to see maybe that, in a sense, that he'll confess.
That's a possibility. That's a tactic that might be engaged in. Its legality, its morality might be questioned. The media also would have to question its own complicity in that type of situation. If, as Mr. Brokaw seems to be implying, they know they're being used, do they have an obligation to then literally run with that story? It's a very interesting dilemma for the media that...
Believe me, they'll run with it.
I think the tendency is, with the competitiveness of that industry, that, and it's a cutthroat type of industry, they'll run with it.
Bill, why did you become a cop?
Something I always wanted to do. No relatives in the police field, no role models, if you will, so that so often you see police officers that it runs in the family. Not in my case, that my father was a postal worker, my mother was a homemaker, as we now call what were formerly housewives, and nobody in the family that, maybe the fact that I grew up very close to a police station house. The police precinct in my neighborhood was only 3 blocks from the house, so used to see the comings and goings of the police quite frequently. But from my earliest remembrance, that there was always an interest.
And in Boston, most of the police are they well integrated there, the police in Boston?
The police situation in Boston is one that, oops, little fly control here, that fly on the wall, literally listening in. That in Boston, when I was hired in 1970, my class was the last class that was hired for almost 5 years, while the issue of racial representation was battled in the courts. And Boston, for most of the last 20 years, has operated under court decrees to increase minority and female representation. When I joined the Boston Police Department in 1970, 2,800 police officers, only 55 minorities, and no women. That has changed now, where the representation is about 25 to 30% minority and probably about 10% female.
What does that do to the community when they feel that there's a racial imbalance in terms of the police, which is really the first contact with the community when something goes wrong?
It is really an issue of community, whether it's Boston, New York, anywhere where you have that situation where you have very large minority population, whether it be black, Hispanic, Asian. If they don't feel that there's somebody they can turn to in government, in police, in politics, if you will, there's a feeling that their voice is not being heard and not going to be treated fairly. The unfortunate aspect of this issue is that in the case of New York City, the legislation that controls hiring pretty much almost guarantees that the New York City Police Department will never be truly representative of its population. 52% minority population. Current statistics, I think, are about 25% minority representation in the police department. The hiring that the department does each year, 1,500, 2,000 officers, inasmuch as there's only 25% of each class is minority, you're never really going to change the racial makeup of the department in a noticeable way.
Why is that, by the way?
It's just the way the exams are given, the number of people who take the exams. You only have such a pool of candidates of so many numbers, and the numbers that actually pass by the time you get done with the process, that over the years you've had a consistent percentage of minorities and whites, and you just are not able to make significant gains in the percentage representation on the police department.
So you mean statistically that's the way it comes out because of the testing?
Statistically that's the way it's going to stay, that the department had a hiring surge over the last 5 years in which they hired, oh God, I think the number was about 11,000 officers. The size of the force increased by 7,000, but attrition, you lost 4,000. 11,000 new people come into the department, but the percentage of minorities really did not change a great deal, despite that historic hiring rate over the last 5 years. It's really the way that you have to hire from outside the city, so you get the suburban counties come in, which suburban counties are principally white, so you get a very large population pool there that takes the exam, and the city population, because that population, oftentimes the minority population, suffers from some of the national trends, large criminal justice record history of a large part of the male minority population. The numbers just work against you, and that's unfortunate.
Is there a, let's say, the people in Harlem, do they feel offended by this, or the other minority communities, do they feel?
As I moved about this city during the 2 years as police commissioner, and as police commissioner you move throughout every neighborhood, I don't know that they feel offended. My sense from discussions and meetings and protests were that they feel denied, that this is something that they want, something that would help to ease the tension, something that would help to make them feel more a part of the city and its government.
Right.
And it is one of great frustration. Unfortunately, the resolution of this lies in Albany. Albany has shown a historic disinterest in changing the laws, largely in response to union pressures. The various police unions have adamantly opposed this over time, and those unions carry a lot of clout in Albany.
Did you ever see a mayor so involved as Giuliani in the police?
No, that I don't think you'll find anywhere in the country a mayor that has that much hands-on interest and involvement in criminal justice issues. It's reflective of his career, though. His career has been in criminal justice.
Right.
And there were very few mayors that end up elected. One of the few I'm aware of was Frank Jordan, who was the former police chief in San Francisco, who served one term. He was just defeated. But Frank, once he came into office, didn't immerse himself as intensely as Mayor Giuliani has in criminal justice matters.
So on a day-to-day basis, you'd have to talk to Giuliani about what's going on?
There would probably not be a day that would go by that did not be some interaction with either the mayor himself as a result of public events we were at, or some breaking news story that had relevance to the hall, or with his key people. It's that type of city. New York is a city that doesn't have too many days that go by that there's not a significant newsworthy police-related issue. So the very nature of this city, the very nature of news in this city, requires a lot of close contact and coordination between a police commissioner and a mayor. If that doesn't exist, it can create significant problems. It's alleged to have been a problem during the Crown Heights riot situation, in which a lot of the after-the-fact analysis seemed to indicate that there was not a great deal going on between the mayor and the police commissioner. Mayor Giuliani is a student of history. He studied intimately
Crown Heights,
things that have worked for mayors and things that haven't worked. And he came into office, one of his campaign promises was to be a hands-on mayor, to be there. And to his credit, that he is there. He's literally everywhere. He's like the, what's that, is it the ever-ready bunny, what a Duracell.
He's ready to go.
Just keeps on going along.
Is that healthy?
In the long term for his health, I don't know. That, but for the city, it has some benefit in that there's quite obviously a lot of voters that have confidence in issues in which he's involved, and he has certainly staked out for himself a position that he is going to be there.
I remember you had a correspondent, a CBS fellow named John Miller, was a very good correspondent. He was your
NBC, CBS would be offended.
Yeah,
NBC would be very proud to have him
He's a very
recognized.
good reporter, excellent reporter, and he worked for you as press information officer.
Deputy Commissioner for Public Information.
Why did he leave? Was that Giuliani's intercession?
It was that the mayor felt he had reached a point that he no longer felt that he could trust John. He felt that the office was not responding to his needs, and pretty much pushed John out the door.
And did that bother you?
Oh, sure. John was then somebody I relied on professionally. He was probably, for all time, the best Deputy Commissioner of Public Information the Department ever had, or probably ever will have. He was very well liked by the rank-and-file cop, because as a single guy, he was out there all the time. 3, 4 in the morning to be out on patrol with them. He was thought to be very much for the cops, wanting to tell their story. Unfortunately, City Hall felt that that story oftentimes didn't have enough City Hall presence, and there was continuing conflict, resulting in City Hall finally pushing him out the door, which was a loss for the police department, and I think a loss for the City of New York also.
Why did you quit, Bill?
Combination of factors. The time had come that I entered the police commissioner's office understanding it would be my last public sector police position. After New York City as police commissioner, there's nothing of any interest to me in law enforcement. My predecessor, Ray Kelly, has just recently taken a position in Washington as Assistant Attorney General. Very big job in terms of, and is very well suited for his experience in New York. Ray quite obviously felt that there was a life after the NYPD. I don't see that for myself. I have no interest in
Kelly went to
government.
Haiti for a while.
That's right, for a short period of time.
We can get you to Somalia if you want. We're well connected here.
Even I have no interest in that venue either. I'm interested now in pursuing new career opportunities in the private sector in a related field. The private security sector of necessity has to relate to the public sector, of which I've got a great deal of knowledge. And the company I'm now with, First Security, is a company that's expanding significantly in New York, but also intends to expand nationally.
Well, it's a growth industry.
It certainly is. A lot of new challenges.
Boy. All right, let's talk about, if you were handling Atlanta, can you secure the Olympics any better than they have now, to the best of your knowledge?
I think the lesson learned in Atlanta, everything we're hearing, is that going into that event, the primary focus for security was to protect the athletes. That was the primary focus. So anywhere where the athletes are located, security is extraordinarily tight in the sense of...
Is that because of Munich 11?
Munich, sure, in the sense of in other events over time. But anywhere where the athletes are located, whether living or appearing, security is very significant. Fencing, metal detectors, ID protocols. There was a concern prior to the Olympics, it's now being indicated that security officials had concern with some of these open-air venues, such as last week's event, where there would not be that type of tight security, screening of bags, metal detectors, where there would be a gathering of a large number of people. It was a risk they decided to take. There's probably cost involved, number of available personnel, the feeling that the athletes themselves would be the target of choice. In hindsight now, that is probably, as we're all free to do, second guess, and hindsight is a wonderful thing. Would it be handled differently? Possibly. I wish I could say with some degree of authority, but I'm not sure. The event that was held this week, the memorial event, if you will, I'm not sure what the security procedures were for that crowd, which was significantly larger than the crowd on the night of the explosion. My assumption is they probably had some degree of screening to allow the public to come into that event.
I talk very often to Israeli senior political people and senior security people, and I ask them if they thought the Olympics should have been handled differently. And I don't know if you've been to Israel or not, but...
There as a guest of ADL back in 1988 with Lee Brown, Frank Jordan. We went on a police mission, a number of American police chiefs. So I've had the pleasure of spending 10 days going the length and breadth of Israel.
All right,
absolutely loved it.
So you know Israel. So you know, before you go into a theater in Israel, they examine your bag. I don't know, maybe it's a deterrent.
Do the same thing in England also, London.
Right, because of the IRA.
Exactly.
Do you think America's going to come to that now?
No, I don't think so. That we're an extraordinarily large country geographically compared to both of those environments, much larger population base, and have had nowhere near the number of instances of concern that the Israelis and the British dealt with. I don't think that as a result of these bombings you're going to see a great deal change. That today as we're talking, Congress and the President are back to squabbling already. That we had one day where they agreed to come together to revisit the anti-terrorist bill. Well, the Republicans now caving into the NRA, don't want to have Tagans in the gunpowder.
It's a big issue.
It's a stupid issue, basically. 250 million American citizens don't have a problem with that. A couple of thousand gun nuts who give $6 million
What does a
Congress
Tagan do? It's like you have a driver's license or registry.
It is a
your
chemical that is placed in black powder in particular.
Right.
Well, it can be literally placed in most types of that type of substance. That literally it allows an analytical look-see at that residue and can identify the batch, etc. I'm not really intimate with all of the identification characteristics.
I read that it's like a driver's license, and you'd be able to trace where these, whatever they are, chemicals.
That's my understanding of it. How they actually do it, who knows? But it's.
Would it be helpful?
It'd be extraordinarily helpful to law enforcement. And why shouldn't we do anything that would help us to identify something that's used in a terrorist act? And I think you're going to find, as the Republicans ended up with egg all over their face themselves and Bob Dole on the attempt to repeal the assault rifle ban. They did a quick retreat there because the American public wasn't with them. Good luck to them trying to explain, Newt Gingrich and company, trying to explain why they won't support something that's killing American citizens. That's another reason why they're probably going to end up losing this election big time, because the American public's just not buying into, caving in to the NRA and their $6 million in campaign contributions, when so far this past year or so have lost over 400 American lives to terrorist activity. Terrorist activity that can be prevented, or terrorist activity that after the fact can be easily detected and readily identified with some of these systems that we're looking for. I just don't get it, that in terms of an American public...
And I might add that Bill is not a member of either party. I think you're apolitical.
I'm independent. I go with the issues. That
right. So this is not
I can
against
go Democratic or
Republican,
but the Republicans are leading the charge.
It's a very strong statement by you. I mean, you're really upset about that.
And there's also, unfortunately, a number of Democrats that are supportive of the NRA on this issue. Right. Let us hope when the time comes to go for re-election this year, and it's an election year, the American public remembers all these characters down in Washington that are more interested in campaign contributions in their pocket than the lives of American citizens they're supposed to be representing. Time for America to smarten up and basically kick some of these clowns out of office, because that's what they are.
So you say something very interesting, because a lot of television commentaries have not been the way you speak. I heard Senator Leahy the other night say America will never be the same since the Atlanta bombings. There'll be something like Israel at the supermarket. You'd have hand searches, and it's not going to happen. It's too big, the country.
It's, again, we're already seeing Congress can't even, in spite of 230 deaths, come to what should just be a simple conclusion to give American police a tool to identify terrorists when these acts occur.
Absolutely right. And they're bickering in Congress.
Already. So I don't think you might see some heightened security, some better procedures, but a significant change in the way we go about our lives, that incremental maybe over time, but the idea that shopping malls putting in metal detectors, etc., I don't think so.
Bill, I worked with President Carter in the White House for 3 years, and it was very easy to go in. And not easy, but you know, you didn't have the zones that you have there now. Now we're part of the White House press.
Well, that's why I talk about the incremental
I see
increase,
that.
closing of Pennsylvania Avenue.
Is closed down now, and it's a little bit harder to get there.
New York City, anybody who enters a city hall has to go through a metal detector and a screener for bags. Same for one police plaza. Increasingly in private office buildings, World Trade Center, case in point, to get into those buildings have been made more difficult. But those are incremental changes. You're not going to see all of a sudden throughout the country. It's an independent choice by an office complex or a business complex. Americans will accept a certain degree of interference, but because of the strong history of civil liberties that we have, we're also somewhat resistant to it. So that's why I don't think you're going to see a lot of wholesale changes. A lot of lip service out of Congress, but I'll be amazed if they deliver a product, and shame on them if they don't.
You're now in the security business. As a police commissioner, you had nothing to do with airline security, but you probably had to do with the Port Authority, maybe. How do you handle airline security? Or how can you handle airline security?
Well, there's several significant deficiencies that are being highlighted as a result of the recent situations. One, that the quality of personnel that are manning these checkpoints, the metal detectors and the X-ray machines, it's somewhat ironic that in most airports, professional police personnel, in the case of New York, the Port Authority police, are usually seen outside directing traffic, giving parking tickets. Within the terminal, the more significant role of examining your baggage and checking people through is relegated to security agents who, by and large, are minimum wage, minimum background review, very limited training, and phenomenal turnover among personnel, so that you've got the low quality in the area where you need the highest quality, and you have your highest quality personnel in an environment where it could be argued they're really not needed. So most airports I travel through, that's what they look like. Secondly, the vulnerability of what goes on an airplane, we have come to learn over the last several weeks that the cargo procedures are very, very poor.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has come to understand that. Ironically, a lot of what happens at airports is in response to theft at airports by employees, by organized crime. JFK is notorious around the country, if not the world, for the degree of theft there. As a result, a lot of the cargo coming into Kennedy is locked up before it gets here to keep the thieves who are employed at the airport from stealing. So that then increases the ability, if there were to be a bomb, et cetera.
Is that the province of private security firms or the police?
It's province of both. That the police get into it because of the large amount of smuggling, cars, drugs, et cetera. Customs gets into it, the task forces. But it has now been seen as a potential vulnerability as far as getting devices onto planes, because these things come in sealed. So that's an area that there's going to probably now be a lot more done in terms of at least looking at it, understanding it as to whether economically you can address that issue in terms of costs, slowing down processes. It will remain to be seen. There's also, we've been very slow putting in technology that's out there because it's very costly, and it also is not foolproof. This is the X-ray machines that would allow the examination of cargo and a more thorough analysis of baggage to detect particularly plastic explosives in the bags. I've read somewhere there's only 3 of those devices in the United States. England has 30 or 40 of them.
Europe has it. Mm-hmm. Do you have any doubts about what caused the blast on a TWA flight?
Myself personally, I think like most of the 250 million Americans feel that that was a bomb. I think we'll be very surprised if it wasn't. I would hope that it wasn't, because an accidental death is easy to deal with, and the fact that you've got terrorists that you now have to go and get, you know, so I think all of us would hope that it was accidental and something could be traced and prevented from occurring again, preferable to being a terrorism act, which you can't guarantee the prevention of another one by the same cast of characters unless you make an arrest of them.
And do you think it's possible a missile could have been shot at a plane like that?
Based on my understanding of the capabilities of the existing missiles, the Russian and the U.S. Are the two that are most frequently used, this plane probably would have been out of range of both of those. And secondly, that the
timing had to be great, wouldn't it have to?
Timing would have to be great, or if they were after this particular plane and the knowledge of nighttime, it was just the plane. But there's also the issue that until we cover all 4 engines, we really won't know for sure about the missile theory, because the missile is a heat-seeking device, and it would have not hit the plane except at the engine, because it will go after the heat source. So, but if it were a missile, the analysts would be able to tell a missile versus a mechanical breakdown because of where the impact of the missile would occur at the beginning of the engine rather than farther into the engine. So the fact that they've only recovered 2 engines so far, they need the other 2 to completely disprove the missile theory.
Speaking about Russians, is there a Russian mafia in this country?
Oh, sure, and it's growing.
Brighton Beach?
Russian mafia are very active in Russia and growing in other countries, and very active here in the United States.
And does New York City have a special squad in the police that tracks these people?
We have a organized crime strike force that has within its larger entity squads that specialize. For example, each of the traditional mafioso or Cosa Nostra crime families, there was a squad for each of those 5 families. And similarly, for some of the growing population groups that are engaged in organized crime types of activity, Albanian organized crime specializes in safe breaks, and Same for the Russians, that there's a very active group involved in crime, unfortunately, within that community.
Mayor Koch was on the show many times. He said that the police force in New York City is the 7th largest army or something like that in the world. I don't know what
38,000 officers, we're probably about the 6th or 7th largest police force in the world. Mexico City, Moscow, some of these other cities have larger, but we are probably have almost as many cops and Navy and Air Force capabilities as many small countries.
Are you going to run for mayor one day?
I don't think so, not in the near term anyway.
There you have it, the total refusal. Not in the near future anyway.
The Leon Charney Report congratulates the team of BDC, The Price of Peace, and Leon Charney on the New York Emmy Awards win. The documentary reveals the true story of the negotiations leading up to the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time, the Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt. Watch it on Hulu.com or buy the special feature edition DVD at select stores.
Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the backdoor channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the Mystery of the Kaddish. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD and Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Mole Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs and Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We got Alan King with us, no introduction necessary. One of the finest comedians the world's produced in this century, and the century's closing out. And Alan's still going to be with us for another 30 years, although he krechs a lot. He complains a lot about the way he feels.
It's true.
Alan, I saw you at the Concord Hotel July 4th weekend.
Yeah.
You were brilliant,
well,
brilliant.
Thank you.
And there was a takeoff on your book?
Well, it is. I'm getting to the point in my life now where I'm not about to talk about trying to get a doctor in the middle of the night or an insurance company or lawyers. I've been doing that all my life. And I thought that in writing my book, I thought what I do in my concerts now is I start at the beginning. And I go right up to my arthritis, so I cover everything.
It's brilliant. The name of the book is Name Dropping?
Name Dropping, yeah. The Life and Lies of Alan King. The reason for lies is, I've been telling some stories for so long, I don't remember if they're true, But it was a good life.
But you're not over. I mean,
no, well,
we had Abby Eben on last week. He's 83 or 84 years old.
I'm going to be 70.
And he's brilliant, and you don't look 70.
I'm going to be, but...
Is it psychological?
No. What I think, and I've been doing this for so long, 55 years actually as a pro, that my audiences who grew up with me, first it was in the suburbs, first it was with the marriage and then the kids, and then it was the suburbs, then it was all the complaints that everybody had, And I think, growing up with me, I think they all got aches and pains, and I think they get a kick out of me telling them, all about my aches and pains. Oh, I see the young audiences laugh at it because their parents, their aunts, and their uncles are complaining the same way. And I've always been a complainer about everything, all my life. And so they say, oh, yeah. And the biggest kick I get out of it is when I talk about whatever it may be, and the wife gives the husband a shot. That's you. I mean, I did a show in Florida where, my kind of people, they came in, with aluminum walkers, wheelchairs. No, I'm not making fun of it, but I got the biggest laugh. I opened, I said, if I get a standing ovation tonight, this will really be a miracle. I think they know me so long.
You're right. You grew up with all the generations.
Yeah.
You won't believe this, but I was an MC at the Leibowitz Pineview in 1960-something, and I introduced you. Obviously, you won't remember it, but
No,
you
it
remember
wasn't memorable.
the introduction of the show.
I worked, Leon, I have worked places that
remember.
amaze me. The people come up to me and say, I saw you, and names of, I've been doing it for so long. But it's good, I've got their children now. I love when somebody comes over to me, and they give me things like, didn't you used to be Alan King? Or I had one woman say, didn't you used to be famous? I said, yes. She said, who are you? I said, Ernest Hemingway. She said, I knew it was somebody like that. So it's fun.
But people don't know that you really started off as a singer?
Well, I started off as I did singing impressions when I went with Major Bowes. I did a song called Brother Can You Spare a Dime, the song of the Great Depression, and toured with the Major. And then, you can't make a living singing Brother Can You Spare a Dime. So I started doing, impressions of Jolson, things I always did on the street corners. It was Jolson, and there was Cantor, and there was Bing Crosby. And, So that's how I started. And then I also was a musician as a youngster, had a little band, and we tumbled, And I got a job in the Catskill Mountains. And I was 15. And I worked at a Hotel Gratis.
Gratis?
That was the name of the hotel. And my opening night,
I thought you worked for nothing.
Well, that's my opening night, Hotel Gratis in Fallsburg. And my opening night is when you work for gratis, you work for gratis. And then somebody explained to Mr. Gratis what I meant, and he threw me out of the hotel. So I really did get my training in the Catskill Mountains. I'm amused, Leon. A lot of my contemporaries either deny or make light of the fact that they came out of the Catskills. It was a great training ground.
You came out of there, Buddy Hackett came out of there, Red Buttons came out of there.
Jan Murray, it goes on.
Shecky Green came out of there,
Phil
Jay
Foster,
Murray, Phil Foster,
Oh,
everybody.
the list is endless. And others in show business that went on, that started as busboys. I mean, Arthur Miller, great American playwright, told me that he was a waiter at the Fallsview. He learned how to eat a lamb chop when the people used to leave the lamb because they never fed the waiters. So he said he learned to eat what was left on a lamb chop on the way to the kitchen like a harmonica. He used to give it one. This is Arthur Miller talking about the Catskill Mountains.
It's a little weak up there now. I mean, hotels are changing. Where do young comics start today?
Well, there was a time when there was a saloon and a comedy club on every corner. Of course, that's long past. But there's so many there's so many places for young people to work. The problem is that with cable, you get up in the middle of the night to relieve yourself, and you come back. There's a guy doing jokes on television. I mean, 4 in the morning. Give us a break, But the cable I think it's just a little too much now. And these kids are being exposed early without the training that they should have. And I think there are going to be a lot of broken hearts. But I mean, the cream will rise, Every generation has its stars.
So in 50 years, and you've been on every show that was created on television, you had Sullivan, Carson, Parr. Which was
goes on and on.
Yeah, which
Barry.
was the most? What do you think? The impressive show on America?
Well, of course, Ed Sullivan was what Ed Sullivan did was what my father and I, as a kid, went to see at Lowe's State or the Palace. It was a vaudeville show,
right?
And I think Ed, and the fact that he had such longevity. I think he was on something like 28 years, and nobody knew what he did.
They still aren't. His son-in-law was Bob Preston.
Bob Preston was the producer of the show. And I remember the great Fred Allen, who was one of our most incredible wits, once said about Ed Sullivan 2 things. He said he lights up a room by leaving it. And the other line he says he doesn't, Fred Allen said he doesn't know what Ed Sullivan does, but he knows that a door could do the same thing if you rub meat on the actor. He says he was a pointer. But he was very bright. He was a great journalist. And that's the success of the show. If he heard about a singing nun in Belgium, he was on the next plane. He booked, you know, so he scooped everybody.
He ran around?
He just
he had Elvis Presley,
well,
had
of
the
course.
Beatles.
I mean, it just went on and on. He scooped everybody.
Did he pay decently?
Oh, yeah. He was a top-paying show.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, no. There were no favors. That's why he got so mad with Parr and with Carson, because he felt that he was paying top dollar, and they'd go on air for $225. So there was kind of a feud going on at that time. And he said he wouldn't have anybody that went on the show come on his show for the big bucks. They settled it. But Ed was a tough guy, a good guy, but tough.
Did you enjoy doing Parr and Carson all the shows?
I loved it.
How about Joe Franklin's show?
Joe Franklin. Did I ever do that? Am I old enough? No. I did Joe in another life. I liked Parr. I loved Parr because Parr was bright. Besides being bright, well, obviously you got to be bright, you know. I've always said that comedians, humorists have to be bright. Singers can be dumb. All you do is sing Gershwin or Porter, you know. But not that they're all dumb. I know Tony Bennett's going to call me. I've said this before. Tony Bennett says, we're not dumb. I said, I didn't say all of you are. But I love Tony, obviously. But with Parr, you never knew what to expect. There was always that little edge, you know, even though he was so laid back, you know. And Parr was a very courageous guy, you know. He took on a lot of guys that no one had the guts to do.
Alan, we're out of time. Would you believe it?
I'm out of time.
Can we get you back and reminisce?
Yes, anytime. I love it.